At 39 years old, Wendell Pierce made an honest living, earning a steady $61,000 a year as an HVAC technician in Charlotte, North Carolina. His hands, calloused and capable, could diagnose the subtle death rattle of a failing compressor or coax life back into a furnace on the coldest day of the year. He lived in the same modest duplex on West Boulevard that he'd grown up in, a home filled with the quiet echoes of his father. And on a Tuesday afternoon, at exactly 4:18 p.m., his carefully constructed world was devastated by a single piece of certified mail. The crisp white envelope contained a petition for divorce from his wife, Brianna. The rain that had been threatening all day finally broke, streaking down the windows of his living room as he stood there, the papers trembling in his hand. The words swam before his eyes: irretrievable breakdown, equitable distribution, demand for exclusive possession of the marital residence. The marital residence, this house, his father's house. He sank onto the worn fabric of his $400 Ashley furniture sofa, the one Brianna had always called a placeholder for something better. For 9 years, he had tried to be the man she wanted, a man who could somehow bridge the gap between his world of ductwork and Freon and her world of brunch reservations and boutique shopping in South Park. He had failed. He read the petition again, a cold knot tightening in his stomach. She wanted the house, half of their savings, and alimony. She was being represented by a law firm with an address on Sharon Road, a place where the hourly billing rates were likely more than he made in a week. A bitter laugh escaped him. Their savings. He knew what had been happening to their savings. He just hadn't wanted to believe it. Then a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. It was from 2 years ago, in the quiet, sterile room at the Levine and Dixon Hospice House. His father, a man whose presence had been a mountain in Wendell's life, was diminished, his powerful frame withered by cancer. His voice was a rasp, but his eyes were clear. "Son," he'd whispered, his grip surprisingly strong on Wendell's arm. "I left a message on my old phone. The gray Nokia. Don't listen to it. Not until she files. You'll know when. Don't play it a second before." At the time, it had felt like the morphine-fueled rambling of a dying man. Wendell had promised, of course, tucking the memory away with the grief. He had kept the old phone, a relic from 2005, in the back of his sock drawer, a sentimental keepsake. Now his father's words echoed with chilling prescience. Not until she files. Last Tuesday she filed. He stood up, his movements stiff. He walked into his bedroom, past the king-sized bed that had felt empty for months, and opened the drawer. There it was, nestled between mismatched socks and old pay stubs, the $80 Nokia 3310, its plastic casing worn smooth. With a sense of dread and reverence, he plugged it into its ancient charger and waited for it to come to life. What could a man who had been dead for 2 years possibly have to say that could change anything now? He had no idea how wrong he was. Have you ever felt completely blindsided by someone you trusted? Tell us in the comments about a time you realized things weren't what they seemed. And stick around to see how a father's love reached across time to deliver justice. The early years with Brianna had been painted in the warm, hopeful colors of a Carolina sunrise. They met at a community jazz festival in Romare Bearden Park. He was there with some work buddies, still in his dusty $120 Red Wing boots after a long Friday. She was with friends, a vision in a simple yellow sundress that probably cost more than his boots, her laughter carrying over the sound of the saxophone. He was a quiet, steady man with deep brown skin that seemed to glow in the late afternoon sun and a smile that reached his kind eyes. She was vibrant, ambitious, a black woman with a sleek haircut, and a way of looking at him that made him feel like the only man in the park. Their first dates were simple: a walk along the Little Sugar Creek Greenway, sharing a $15 pizza from a local spot, talking for hours in his 2014 Ford F-150, a truck with 150,000 miles on it that was more office than vehicle to him. She didn't seem to mind his world then. She said she admired his work ethic, the way he could fix anything. "It's a real skill, Wendell," she'd said once, tracing the lines on his palm. "You build things. You make things work. I love that." They married a year later. He moved her into the duplex on West Boulevard, the other half of which was rented out to a quiet, elderly woman, providing a modest $850 a month in extra income. The house was his inheritance, left to him free and clear when his mother, his beloved mama, passed a decade prior. He and his father had renovated the kitchen themselves, spending $6,000 on new cabinets from Lowe's and a durable laminate countertop. Every corner held a memory. The scuff mark on the baseboard, where he'd crashed his toy truck as a boy. The faint smell of his mother's Sunday pot roast that never seemed to leave the walls. The sturdy back porch his father had built with his own hands. For Wendell, the house was a sanctuary. For Brianna, it was a stepping stone. The first signs of the facade cracking appeared about 3 years into the marriage, shortly after her younger sister Chloe moved back to Charlotte. Chloe was a different breed. Where Brianna had a spark of ambition, Chloe had a wildfire of it, fueled by a deep-seated need for luxury and status. She secured a job in marketing and rented a sleek one-bedroom apartment in South Park Tower for $2,200 a month, a glass tower that looked down on the world with cool indifference. Suddenly, their duplex wasn't cozy and full of character anymore. It was cramped and outdated. Wendell's F-150 wasn't rugged and dependable. It was an old work truck. His salary, once a point of stability, became a source of her frustration. Brianna started spending most of her weekends with Chloe in South Park. The sisters would go shopping at the South Park Mall, where Brianna would come home with bags containing a $1,800 Louis Vuitton handbag or a pair of $950 Christian Louboutin shoes, items that cost more than Wendell's entire monthly mortgage payment on the rental side of the duplex. "We have to look the part when," she'd say, arranging the new purchase on their bed. "Chloe's introducing me to people, important people. You have to spend money to make money." He'd nod, trying to understand. He managed their finances meticulously. He put 15% of his income into a 401k and another $500 a month into a joint savings account. The goal was to build a nest egg, to have security. For Brianna, the savings account became a slush fund. The dollar-tagged details of their diverging lives became a constant, unspoken tension. He'd come home, his $40 Dickies work pants smudged with grease, and find her scrolling through her phone looking at $5,000 vacation packages to St. Bart's. He'd pack his own $5 lunch every day, a turkey sandwich and an apple, while she and Chloe had $80 lunches at RH Rooftop Restaurant, posting stylized photos on Instagram. The contrast was stark, a silent argument happening in every corner of their lives. His life was built on the solid, tangible value of labor and savings. Hers was becoming a performance of wealth funded by his sweat. The cruelty wasn't always financial. It was in the casual, dismissive remarks that dripped like poison into the foundation of their marriage. The outrage accumulated not in one explosive fight, but in 1,000 tiny cuts. One Saturday, Wendell was in the backyard, carefully tending to the small vegetable garden his father had started years ago. It was his peace, his connection to the man who taught him everything. He had tomatoes, cucumbers, and collard greens coming in strong. His hands, covered in rich soil, were carefully staking a tomato plant. Brianna and Chloe came out onto the back porch. Chloe was wearing a white linen jumpsuit that probably cost $600 and sipping an iced coffee from a boutique cafe. Brianna, dressed in a matching athleisure set worth at least $300, looked down at him. "What are you doing?" she asked, her tone a mixture of boredom and disgust. Just tying up the tomatoes, Wendell said, smiling up at her, his deep brown face streaked with dirt. We'll have a good crop this year. Chloe let out a little laugh, a sharp, metallic sound. It's so rustic, like a little farmer. Brianna joined in the laughter. I know, right? Wendell and his little dirt patch. She turned to him. Wen, seriously, your hands are filthy. We're supposed to go to that wine tasting at the punch room later. You can't show up with dirt under your fingernails. The smile faded from Wendell's face. He looked at his hands, the hands that fixed air conditioners in the sweltering summer heat, that maintained the home they lived in, that earned the money she spent so freely. It's just dirt, Bree. It washes off. It's the principle of the thing, she said, sighing dramatically. Chloe's friend, the one who owns the gallery, he's going to be there. I can't have my husband looking like a grease monkey who plays in the mud. The words hung in the humid air. Grease monkey, she had used that one before. It was her go-to insult when she was particularly frustrated with their financial reality. Each time it felt like a slap. He said nothing, just turned back to his tomato plant, his shoulders tight. He heard Chloe whisper to Brianna, I don't know how you do it. He's just so simple. He heard Brianna's quiet, affirming hum. That was the day he stopped asking her to join him in the garden. The financial betrayals grew bolder. He'd check their joint savings account, the one labeled Future Fund in his online banking app, and see large withdrawals. First, it was $5,000. Oh, that, Brianna said when he asked, not even looking up from her iPad. Chloe needed a little help with the deposit for her new office space. It's an investment. She's starting her own consulting business. A month later, another $10,000 was gone. This time the excuse was more elaborate. It's for the LLC setup, Brianna explained, her voice smooth and practiced. Lawyer fees, registration costs. Chloe's going to pay it all back with interest once she lands her first big client. You have to trust me, Wendell. He wanted to trust her. He loved the woman he had married. But he was having a harder and harder time finding her inside this new person who spoke of LLCs and networking events with a breathless urgency. He started looking closer at the bank statements he usually just filed away. He saw charges from boutiques he'd never heard of, restaurants with entrees that cost $70, and a recurring charge for a business mentorship program that cost $1,500 a month. The worst moment came on their 8th wedding anniversary. Wendell had planned a quiet, romantic evening. He'd left work early, cooked her favorite meal, shrimp and grits the way his mother used to make it, and bought a beautiful bouquet of lilies, her favorite flower, for $50 from the local florist. He waited and waited. At 8 p.m. she texted, "So sorry, babe. Got held up with Chloe. This business launch is insane. Rain check?" He ate alone at their small kitchen table, the second plate sitting empty across from him. He felt a profound and hollow loneliness. Later that night, as she slept, he felt a gnawing suspicion he couldn't shake. He went to his small home office, a corner of the spare bedroom, and logged into the bank account again. He saw a new withdrawal, made that very day, a wire transfer for $25,000. He felt the air leave his lungs. When he confronted her the next morning, she flew into a rage. "For God's sake, Wendell, can you stop micromanaging me?" she yelled, her face contorted with anger. "It's my money too. It's for the business." Chloe had a huge opportunity, a chance to partner with a major brand, but we needed to show significant capital. This is going to make us rich. Why can't you see the bigger picture? "The bigger picture looks like our entire savings are gone, Brianna," he said, his voice rising for the first time in years. "That was $74,000 we saved. Together. And it's just gone." "It's not gone, it's invested," she shot back. She grabbed her $2,400 Burberry trench coat from the hook by the door. "I can't talk to you when you're like this. You just don't get it. You're happy in your little world with your little truck and your little salary. Some of us want more." She slammed the door behind her, leaving him in a silence that was louder than her shouting. He sat down, overwhelmed. He thought about his father, about his quiet wisdom and his warnings about people who valued appearances over substance. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly comprehend, was that the biggest picture of all was waiting silently on a dead man's phone. They had no idea what was coming. Tuesday, 5:03 p.m. The rain had softened to a miserable drizzle. The divorce papers lay on the coffee table, a testament to 9 years of erosion. Wendell sat in his father's old armchair, a worn leather piece that had cost his dad $600 in 1998 and was now priceless to him. The old Nokia was fully charged, its small monochrome screen glowing with an eerie light. His thumb hovered over the keypad. He felt like he was about to break a sacred vow. Don't play it a second before. But the moment had come. She had filed. He navigated the simple menu, his fingers feeling clumsy on the tiny buttons. Inbox 1. The message was dated 2 days before his father's passing. He pressed play. The speaker crackled to life, and then he heard it. His father's voice. Not the weak, raspy whisper from the hospice bed, but his real voice. Deep, calm, and steady. The sound of it was a physical blow, and Wendell had to close his eyes against a sudden wave of grief and love. "Wendell, son," the voice began, as if his father were sitting right there in the room. "If you're hearing this, it means I was right to worry. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're going through whatever it is that made you play this. But a man's got to protect his own. And you are my own." There was a pause, the sound of his father taking a breath. "Now listen close about the house, the duplex on West Boulevard. It's not in your name. It was never in your name after you married her. The day you said, 'I do,' I went to my lawyer, and I put that house free and clear into a trust, an irrevocable trust. It's called the Wendell Senior Family Trust. You're the beneficiary, but you're not the owner. The trust is. That means it's not a marital asset. It was never part of the marriage. She can't touch it. She can't claim it. She can't force you to sell it. It's yours, but it's protected. It was your mama's home, and I'll be damned if I let anyone take it from her boy." Wendell's jaw went slack. He stared, unseeing, at the wall. An irrevocable trust. He barely knew what that meant, but the certainty in his father's voice was absolute. "The lawyer you need to call is Abraham Davison," the voice continued. "Davison and Sons. He's an old friend. He set the whole thing up. He has all the paperwork. His number is 704-550-0182. Don't call anyone else. Just call Abe. He'll know what to do. He'll protect you, just like I would." The message wasn't over. "One more thing, son. I've seen the way she looks at money. I've seen the way her sister looks at the world. Be careful with your savings. People like that. They see a man like you, a good, hard-working man, as a resource to be tapped, not a partner to build with. I hope I'm wrong about her. I pray to God I'm wrong. But I've been around long enough to know a hawk from a sparrow. This trust, it's your shield. Use it." The voicemail ended. There was a soft click, followed by the hiss of static. The room was silent again, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, another family heirloom. Wendell sat motionless for a full 10 minutes. The shock was a physical weight. His father, the quiet HVAC man, had executed a legal maneuver of such profound foresight it was staggering. He had seen the potential for this exact disaster years ago and built a firewall around the most important thing he had to leave his son, his home. The house wasn't just brick and mortar. It was his entire history, his stability, his legacy. And his father had saved it from beyond the grave. The feeling wasn't triumph, not yet. It was a deep, aching gratitude that was intertwined with the fresh pain of Brianna's betrayal. His father had seen the hawk, and Wendell had been living with it for 9 years. For the next 48 hours, Wendell played the part of the broken man. It wasn't entirely an act. He was heartbroken, not by the end of the marriage, that had been ending in slow motion for years, but by the cold, clinical cruelty of the betrayal. He called his boss and took 2 personal days, citing a family emergency. He didn't answer Brianna's single text message, which read, "Got the papers served? My lawyer will be in touch with yours to arrange a move-out date for you." The arrogance of it was breathtaking. He didn't drink. He didn't rage. Instead, on Wednesday morning, he drove his F-150 to a small park near the Catawba River. He sat on a bench, the divorce papers, and a notepad on his lap, and he thought. He listed every major withdrawal from the joint account, the dates, and the excuses she had given. The total was stark, $74,000. He remembered her words, dripping with condescension. "You're happy in your little world with your little truck and your little salary." She saw him as small. She and her sister were sure he was a simple man who would crumble, sign whatever they put in front of him, and walk away with nothing but his work boots. He could almost hear their conversation, Chloe's sharp voice, cutting through the air. "Don't worry, Bree. He'll cave before the ink dries on the filing." He gripped the pen tighter. They had made a critical mistake. They had mistaken his kindness for weakness. They mistook his quiet nature for a lack of intelligence. They had underestimated him, and more importantly, they had underestimated the love of his father. At precisely 9 a.m. on Thursday morning, Wendell walked into the offices of Davison & Sons. It wasn't in a South Park high-rise. It was in a stately, older brick building in the historic 4th Ward, the kind of place with real wood paneling and the faint, pleasant smell of old books and lemon polish. Abraham Davison was a man in his late 60s, a distinguished black man, with a neatly trimmed gray beard, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that was classic, not flashy. He exuded a quiet authority that immediately put Wendell at ease. "Wendell Pierce," Mr. Davison said, rising from behind his large mahogany desk and extending a hand. His handshake was firm. "Your father was one of the finest men I ever had the privilege of knowing. I'm sorry for the circumstances that bring you here." Wendell sat down, placing the divorce petition on the desk. "She filed?" he said simply. "She wants the house?" Mr. Davison picked up the papers and scanned them, his expression unreadable. He then opened a thick file on his desk. "The Wendell Senior Family Trust," he said, a small, grim smile touching his lips. "Your father was a planner. He came to me the week after your wedding. He said, 'Abe, my boy is a good man. He sees the best in people. I need you to help me protect him just in case he's wrong. This trust," he tapped the file, "is ironclad. The property was transferred into it before it could ever be considered a marital asset. Her petition to claim it is, forgive my language, legal nonsense." The relief was so immense, Wendell felt lightheaded. "So, what do we do?" "We respond," Mr. Davison said, his voice taking on a harder edge. "We don't just defend, we illuminate. You mentioned your savings?" Wendell pushed his handwritten list across the desk. $74,000. Gone. She said it was for her sister's business, an LLC. Mr. Davison's eyes lit up with a strategist's fire. "An LLC, you say? Do you have the name?" "No, she was always vague," Wendell admitted. "Not a problem." Mr. Davison swiveled to his computer. He typed for a few moments. "Let's see. Chloe Vance. Ah, here we are. Vance Premier Solutions, LLC. Interesting." His fingers flew across the keyboard. He stopped, leaned closer to the screen, and then slowly sat back in his chair. "Well, I'll be. Wendell, do you know when this LLC was registered with the state?" "No, sir." Mr. Davison turned the monitor to face him. It was registered on your 8th wedding anniversary. The blood drained from Wendell's face. The day he'd cooked her favorite meal. The day she'd stood him up to launch the business. It wasn't just theft. It was a celebration of her deception, commemorated on a day that was supposed to represent their bond. The cruelty was intentional, layered, and deep. "This changes things," Mr. Davison said, his voice low and serious. "This isn't just about protecting the house anymore. This is about asset recovery. We are going to file our response. We will attach the trust documentation, rendering her claim on the house null and void." And then, he paused, looking Wendell directly in the eye, "we are going to file for a subpoena of all financial records for Vance Premier Solutions, LLC, on the grounds of fraudulent conveyance of marital assets." He explained the legal terms in simple language. Brianna had taken money that was half his and moved it to a third party, her sister's company, to hide it from the divorce settlement. It was a classic and illegal maneuver. Her lawyer will likely drop her once he sees this. The liability is enormous, and her sister is now legally entangled in your divorce. We are not just building a shield, Wendell. We are unsheathing a sword. Wendell felt a cold, calm resolve settle over him. This wasn't about revenge. His father had taught him better than that. This was about accountability. This was about justice. "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "Let's do it." The plan was set. The strike would be swift, coordinated, and devastating. The strike was scheduled for Friday at 12:30 p.m. Mr. Davison was a man who appreciated precision and theater. "People are most arrogant when they believe they are winning," he had told Wendell. "We will serve them while they are celebrating their supposed victory." His intel, gathered from a quick scan of Chloe's public social media, suggested the sisters had a standing Friday lunch at a place called Mizu, a high-end rooftop restaurant in South Park that served $28 sushi rolls and $18 cocktails. Wendell spent that morning at work, performing a full system replacement for a family in the Dilworth neighborhood. The methodical work grounded him. He cut sheet metal, wired the thermostat, and charged the system with refrigerant, his hands moving with the practiced grace of a surgeon. The homeowners, a young couple with a baby, brought him a cold water and thanked him profusely. He was providing comfort, safety. He was a man of skill and substance. The thought solidified his resolve. Meanwhile, in South Park, Brianna and Chloe were seated at a prime table with a panoramic view of the city skyline. Brianna was wearing a new $800 silk dress, a victory purchase. Chloe was in a sharp, white power suit that cost at least $1,500. They clinked their glasses of champagne, the bottle chilling in a silver bucket beside them, a $120 bottle of Veuve Clicquot. "To new beginnings," Brianna said, a triumphant smile on her face, "and to getting what we deserve." "I told you he wouldn't put up a fight," Chloe said, taking a delicate sip. "He's probably sitting in that dump on West Boulevard feeling sorry for himself. He'll sign whatever his lawyer tells him to. He'll cave before the ink dries." Brianna laughed. "The look on his face when he has to move out. I'd pay to see it." At that moment, a man in a discreet, well-fitting suit approached their table. He was not a waiter. He held 2 large manila envelopes. "Excuse me," he said, his voice polite but firm. "Are you Brianna Pierce and Chloe Vance?" Brianna looked up, annoyed by the interruption. "We are. Can we help you?" "You've both been served," the man said, placing one envelope in front of each sister. He turned and walked away before they could even process his words. Chloe was the first to react, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Served? What is this?" Brianna scoffed. "It's probably just his response. His lawyer is legally obligated to send it. Don't worry about it." She picked up her envelope with a dismissive flick of her wrist, expecting a pathetic plea for reconciliation or a meek acceptance of her terms. She tore it open. The first page was the official response to her petition. She scanned it. Then her eyes locked on a phrase. The property located at 1245 West Boulevard is the sole asset of the Wendell Senior Family Trust, an irrevocable trust established prior to the marriage, and is therefore not subject to equitable distribution. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers, hitting the table with a dull thud and spilling its contents onto her new dress. "What?" she whispered, her face going pale. "Wendell Senior Family Trust? What the hell is that?" Chloe, meanwhile, had opened her envelope. Hers wasn't a response, it was a subpoena. The legal language was dense, but certain words leaped out at her. Vance Premier Solutions, LLC, financial records, bank statements, invoices, communications, and then the number that made her blood run cold in relation to the transfer of $74,000 from a joint marital account. "Brianna," Chloe choked out, her voice barely audible. Her manufactured confidence evaporated, revealing raw panic. They know about the money." Brianna snatched the subpoena from her sister's trembling hands. She read it, her eyes wide with disbelief and horror. The precision of it was terrifying. They had the name of the LLC. They had the exact dollar amount. This wasn't the flailing of a simple man. This was a targeted, strategic nuclear strike. Her carefully constructed world began to shatter right there on that rooftop. The view of the city suddenly seemed mocking. Her dress was ruined. Her sister was staring at her with a look of pure terror and accusation. The celebratory lunch had turned into a public nightmare. Brianna fumbled for her $100 iPhone, her hands shaking so badly she could barely unlock it. She scrolled to Wendell's name and hit call. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. She left a frantic message. "Wendell, what is this? What is this trust? This is our house. You call me back right now. This is a trick." She hung up, her breathing ragged. Chloe was muttering, "My business, my reputation." "Brianna, what did you get me into?" The blame was already beginning to fly. The foundation of their alliance, built on greed and a shared contempt for Wendell, was cracking under the first tremor of real consequences. They had no idea that this was only the beginning. The collapse was just getting started. Do you think Brianna and Chloe are getting what they deserve? Let us know your thoughts below, because the fallout from this is about to get very, very real. The consequences cascaded with the brutal efficiency of a line of dominoes. Mr. Davison had orchestrated the strike not just to defend, but to dismantle. The downfall was not a single event, but a series of precise, enumerated losses that unraveled Brianna and Chloe's lives completely. First came the call from Brianna's own lawyer, a man named Richard Carlisle, whose firm charged a $15,000 retainer that Brianna had paid using the last of a credit card. He called her on Monday morning. His tone was not the warm, confident one she was used to. It was cold and clinical. "Brianna, I've reviewed the response and the trust documents provided by Mr. Davison," he stated. "No pleasantries exchanged. The trust is legitimate and, from what I can see, legally unassailable. Your father-in-law was very thorough. The house is not a marital asset, period." "But that's not fair," Brianna sputtered. "I lived there for 9 years. I decorated it." "Your decorating choices do not supersede an irrevocable trust, Brianna," Carlisle said, his patience clearly gone. "Your primary claim in the petition is now void. Furthermore, the subpoena served to your sister's LLC for fraudulent conveyance of $74,000 is a very serious matter. It exposes you and my firm to potential sanctions. I am ethically obligated to inform you that we will be filing a motion to withdraw as your counsel." "You're quitting? You can't quit," she shrieked. "I can, and I am. You will receive a final bill for services rendered. The remainder of your retainer, approximately $4,300, will be returned to you. I suggest you find new counsel, though I imagine it will be difficult given the circumstances." The line went dead. Brianna was left with a dead phone, a voided legal strategy, and a bill for over $10,000 for a lawyer who had just fired her. Next was the implosion of Vance Premier Solutions, LLC. Chloe was forced to hire her own lawyer, a man who charged her a $10,000 retainer just to look at the case. He gave her stark advice: comply with the subpoena or face contempt of court charges and possible criminal investigation by the IRS for creating a shell corporation to launder funds. Terrified, Chloe handed over every bank statement. The records clearly showed the initial $74,000 deposit from Brianna and Wendell's joint account, followed by a series of rapid expenditures: a $15,000 payment for a down payment on a new white BMW 3 Series for Chloe, $20,000 transferred to Chloe's personal investment account, and thousands more spent on designer clothes, luxury travel, and rent for her South Park condo. There was no legitimate business activity whatsoever. The sisters' relationship shattered. Chloe, facing financial ruin and potential legal charges, blamed Brianna entirely. "You told me it was fine. You told me he was a fool who would never figure it out," she screamed at Brianna in the lobby of her high-rise, the argument echoing off the cold marble floors. "You've ruined me," Chloe demanded Brianna pay for her legal fees. Brianna, now jobless and with her own legal bills, had nothing to give. Chloe kicked her out of the apartment. The financial consequences for Brianna were devastating. In the settlement negotiations, Mr. Davison didn't have to fight. He simply laid out the facts. The $74,000 was treated as an advance on Brianna's share of the marital assets. Since their remaining liquid assets, a small joint checking account with $3,200 and the $4,300 from her lawyer's retainer, totaled only $7,500, she had effectively already spent her entire settlement and then some. She walked away from a 9-year marriage with nothing: no house, no savings, no alimony. She was left with her expensive clothes, her now useless handbag, and about $25,000 in credit card debt she had racked up living her high-flying lifestyle. The voicemails Wendell received during this period told the story of her collapse in real time. The first, on Friday afternoon, was pure rage. "Wendell, you call me back. What did you do? You think you're so smart with this little trick? This won't stand." The second, on Saturday morning, was laced with confusion and a hint of fear. "Okay, I don't understand this trust thing, but we can be reasonable. We can still split the house. Just call me so we can talk like adults." By Monday evening, after her lawyer had fired her, the tone shifted to desperation. Sound of crying. "Wendell, please call me. I don't know what's happening. Carlisle dropped me. Chloe, she's being subpoenaed. What did you do?" The final message came a week later. Her voice was flat, devoid of all its former arrogance. It was the voice of a person who had lost everything. "Wendell, I get it, okay? I get it. I'm sorry." He listened to that last message and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just a quiet, profound emptiness where his love for her used to be. The storm had passed, and he was the only one left standing. 1 year later, the world looked different. It was a bright, cloudless Saturday morning in Charlotte, and the sun poured into the open garage of the duplex on West Boulevard. The garage, once a cluttered space, was now a model of order and purpose. Wendell's father's tools were cleaned and arranged neatly on a pegboard, a silent testament to a legacy of craft. In the center of the garage stood the crown jewel, his father's 1985 Ford F-150. Wendell had spent the last 6 months painstakingly restoring it. The chrome grille, which had been pitted and dull, now gleamed. The engine, which he had completely rebuilt, purred with a deep, satisfying rumble. It was more than a truck, it was a connection, a project of love and remembrance. Wendell, now 40, was no longer just an HVAC technician. He was a mentor. Standing beside him were two teenagers from the neighborhood, Marcus and Jamal. Both were bright, curious young black men who reminded Wendell of himself at their age. He had started a small, informal apprenticeship program on weekends, teaching them the trade his father had taught him. He paid them a fair wage of $18 an hour from his own pocket. "All right, look here," Wendell said, pointing to the compressor on a demonstration unit he'd salvaged. His deep brown skin was luminous in the morning light, and his hands, though still calloused, moved with the confidence of a master craftsman. "The pressure differential is key. You can't just charge a system based on the ambient temperature. You have to understand the thermodynamics." Marcus and Jamal listened intently, their eyes wide with respect. They weren't just learning about HVAC. They were learning about diligence, about the value of a tangible skill, about the dignity of honest work. They saw in Wendell a man who was grounded, successful on his own terms, and willing to share his knowledge. He had kept the house, of course. It was his sanctuary, now more than ever. The garden in the back was thriving, producing more tomatoes and collards than he could eat himself, most of which he gave to his neighbors and the local church. The quiet, elderly woman who rented the other half of the duplex had her rent frozen. He'd even fixed her air conditioner for free last summer. He rarely thought of Brianna. He'd heard through the grapevine that she had moved to a small, run-down apartment complex on the other side of town and was working a retail job at the mall where she used to shop. Chloe's LLC was dissolved, and she'd had to sell her BMW to pay her legal fees and tax penalties. They had built their world on a foundation of sand, and the tide of consequences had washed it all away. Wendell felt a buzz in his pocket. He pulled out his modest $300 Samsung phone. It was a text from Sarah, a woman he'd met a few months ago. She was a kindergarten teacher who ran the community garden where he'd started volunteering. Her hair was a beautiful collection of intricate braids, and her laugh was genuine and warm. The text read, "Garden's looking amazing. Brought you a slice of that sweet potato pie you like. Leaving it on your porch." A slow, genuine smile spread across Wendell's face. He texted back, "You're the best. Give me an hour to wrap up here and I'll come thank you properly." He put the phone away and turned back to the boys. "Okay, who wants to learn how to braze a copper line?" he asked, a new light in his eyes. We spend so much of our lives being told what success should look like. The expensive car, the big house, the fancy title. But true wealth isn't something you can buy in a store or post on social media. It's the skills in your hands, the love you inherit, the integrity you hold, and the legacy you choose to build for others. It's the quiet satisfaction of a job well done and the warmth of a sweet potato pie left on your porch by someone who values the real you. True wealth is character, and character is the only asset that can never be taken from you. Thank you for watching Love Beyond Pride. If this story of resilience and quiet strength touched you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who might need a reminder of what truly matters. We'll see you next time.